Good morning, classmate. Uh, I'm Marvin Daniel, and my topic is all about platform-independent design. This chapter describes techniques for refinement of analysis model towards to platform-independent design by model transportation. It also describes platform-independent design structure techniques such as design patterns and module specification. The design process. Design is concerned with constructing components and organizing their interaction in order to achieve the system requirement. This involves number one, identifying the subsystem and modules which have a concurrent and well-defined purpose and functional cohesion. Identifying the dependency between modules and specifying their interface and responsibilities. Example, in terms of a set of constraints that they are responsible for. In a complete design, each requirement's use case and constraint must be carried out or maintained by some class or module, or by the combination of class and module. For example, in a Scrabble system, the make move used to discuss in section 2.2 will be primarily implemented in player GUI module, which manage all the GUI interacting for constructing a moves. The validation and score calculation of the moves will be responsibility of the move module. Some constraints will be satisfied by design and individual move unit or class. For example, post condition. Square square is equal to the result and equals to post. Square letter plus result will equal to true. Boolean of square can be directly implemented as condition statement. Push your code in the definition of the operation. Other constraints, such as the property C5 that occupies square on the board, must be reachable from each other. A square that we add with x will be squared in x. X squared letter will be x adjacent closure. Will involve more complex design decision and interaction of possible several modules. We can use inductive approach and maintain this constraint. To ensure in the true initial, we must be informed that the player or the move modules probably that all letters placed in the first move must be connected on the subsequent module moves. It is sufficient to ensure that at least one of the new letters adjacent to existing occupying square and the new letter are placed connected to the line. Due to the recursive definition of adjacent closure, this will be established C5 for the updated board. The checks 1 and 2 probably can be implemented by the move modules if the state of the board before the move is probably with the modules. So yun nga, classmate. Sa Scrabble games nga po natin, dapat po connected from one another po yung mga letters. Para po magkaroon po tayo ng moves para din sa letter natin, dapat po connected po yun sa one letter, or mas maganda po if interconnected po siya with the other letter. Model transportation. A number of useful model transportation on UML specification can be used to improve structures of models or to progress the models toward the implementable forms. In terms of MDA, these, these are PIN to PIN or PIN to PSN mapping. For any model transportation, we must ensure that it will serve all transformations should all be so not impose additional constraints without good justification. As this, we will restrict implementation choices. Thus, the best transformation are equivalents. In next chapter, we will show how to define the transformation terms and constraints between the old and the new model. And so yun nga, next chapter, mas maano natin yung sa model transformation. Next will be, as you also see in the figure 5.1, replace of many association with a new class and too many one as association. It is particularly useful as a step toward in implementation of the class diagram in a relation in database. If A is into A and B is to B are related and AB in the original model, then the AB object can be called X, such as X A R prime is equal to A and B, X B R prime is equal to B, and vice versa. So the original ABR will set in the obtain of AX R B R prime in the new model. This transformation replace inheritance by association. This transformation is useful to remove situation of multiple inheritance from PINs. As you can see, yan nga. Nakikita natin dito na yung mga ano natin, na ano po natin sila, napapalitan po ng mas okay po para po din sa bago nating data. Introduction, qualified association. This transformation replace an identify attribute. For example, attendance is equal to P and class B in a class B. And by the qualification, qualified by attributes may be class A that associate to B, and the new AB prime relates with X to B exactly when it related to B and A to B, and X is equal to B attendance. Introducing superclass. This transformation applied where two classes is common. The new common, and see the diagram. Then you will see that the new superclass is usually abstract because only A and B instances existed in the original model. The common features of move into new superclass common operations become abstract and superclass. As you can see, ayun nga po classmate, nakikita nyo po dito na pinakita po natin yung mga superclass nung A and B. Na associate po may mga associate po yung kay A and B. Target splitting state chart transition. This transition refines behavior statement splitting transition in two or more disjoint states. An example, pakita natin. Example po nito, ito, katulad nito. Nakita po ninyo, dito po sa figure natin, ang example po is G is equal to G1 by G2, and G1 is to G2. That's why the guard G is split into disjoint case. For example, if G is equal to is X while Y, and G1 could be x is equal to y, and G2 would be x is greater than y, less than y rather. The introduction of qualified association was used to enable to the board square and to be refined in the other coordinates in the Scrabble system. Design pattern. Design pattern are the characteristic structure of the software where are used to solve particular design. They mainly independent in programming language, at least within the general category of the object-oriented language. So, can be used to the platform-independent design. The concept of the design pattern originates in the building architecture and writing of Christopher Alexander. His, his book includes the timeless way of building, a pattern language term building construction. Subsequently, software research such to apply to concept the program construction and discover of design pattern. So, yung easy dito na naman, so dito, makikita po natin dito yung the template method. Template method. Pattern. This is a behavior pattern used to organize or refactor a design whenever there are methods which is essential are the same algorithm in two or more classes, but when small variation, the pattern defines a superclass for these classes and a places to generate definition of M in the class, meaning that the subclass will be needed to define as M, in which they be declared. So, ayun na nga, classmate. Meron kasi tayo ditong tinatawag na structure template method pattern. Makikita po ninyo dito, the classes involved in the pattern are, unang-una, si generic class po. This define the template method, which is consists of a skeleton algorithm, calling a more hook methods. It also define hooks methods that superclasses can be override. Concrete class, it implement the hook method. Mismo hook method na nagamit doon. So ito, makikita nyo dito, yung ating yung isang template nung para makita nyo si generic class tsaka si generic class nga, tsaka si concrete class. So yun, the iterator patterns. So, the purpose of this behavior pattern is to support and access element of an aggregates data, such as true or array. Subsequently, it is applicable whenever we, number one, requires multiple transversal algorithms over an aggregate. Number two, requires a uniform transversal interface over different aggregates. And number three, or when the aggregates classes with transversal algorithms must be verified independently. The general structure of the pattern is shown in figure 7. Nakikita naman natin ang tinatawag po natin aggregates. Aggregates are the class defining a general composite data structure such as list of trees. Ang sunod po is yung concrete aggregate. Specific subclass po na defining po yung particular data structures such as a list of binary stage tree. Next naman po is yung iterator nga po natin. Interface po yan in the general iteration operation such as accessing in the first element of the collection. stepping through the collection. Yun nga po, another idea. Concrete iterator naman po, iterator subclass specific with a particular data structure. The concrete iterator method of the data structure returns in a concrete iterator instance in the structure. The consequence of the pattern are increased in the flexibility because the aggregates and the traversal mechanism are independent. It is possible to have multiple iterators acting in the same aggregates object simultaneously possibility. With different transversal algorithms, example, using both poet and pre-order transversal. Parang ganun po. Line. Iterator as the generator. The permutation iterator. The concept of the iterator is much more general than the simply iterating through the elements of the fixed pre-existing data structure. One very important use iterator is a generator of all elements some connection of objects. Definition. A generator is a collection S is bijective function of G. So 1n is where is n is the size of n s. One is the one is the subject. Abstract superbase and all classes containing observed data provides methods attack and detach and add to add and remove observes of an object and notify to form all observers and significant things as occur in a observable and they may be need to update their presentation of it. Concrete subject is specific by observable date and methods of the class which modify its state may need to call notify on completion. So ito nga yun. Another thing is the observer. Observer, abstract superclass, observer, and subject secure and update method with a purpose to adjust the observer. Presentation in any subject stage change. Concrete observer plus defining a specific view such as bar chart. Ayun nga yun. So, makikita nyo nga dito na yung parang dinagdagan lang din po ng concrete. Pero, iisa lang din po sila. Pero, pag dinagdagan na po ng concrete, meron na po silang specific topic na kailangan po nilang yun po, yung palabas. The builder pattern. Builder pattern, this is creational pattern allows the client to obtain complex objects by the declarative specification of their types and content. The details of the construction are managed in a separate class which different builders such subclass for each variant in objects to constructed. So ito nakita po natin dito yung design structure of the building pattern. So in a Scrabble system, an example where this pattern is useful is in the construction of the board and the letter in the bag. An object of the going class invokes the method of NN instance in the English Scrabble Builder class. A subclass of the general Scrabble Builder class is to construct a board, the board with the correct location of the ordinary and premium square and initialize the bag with the correct number of each square. So ito nga po yun. Client nga po, yun nga po. Meron po siyang abstract builder dito, makikita nyo 1 and 2 and director. And si director po, bibigay din po niya kay abstract builder with the concrete builder din po. Builder pattern for Scrabble system. This makes extension of other language variants in Scrabble. For example, a new subclass Scrabble builder would need to be defined, but no other parts of the system would be changed. If GUI elements and measure also needed needed to be given in a different language. This could also be constructed by further Scrabble builder method. Ayan po, makita nyo po sa Scrabble. On the game po tayo. Siyempre, sa Scrabble po, dapat po meron po tayong 7 letters at least. Tapos po, yun po, makikita nyo po dito. Siyempre, gagawa na po ng word. Then, yung square po, that connected po dun with another. Siyempre, yung English Scrabble builder po, dapat po may listing nga po siya. And, square po, yung ano po nila. The Singleton pattern. The creational pattern is used to define classes which must have single instances. For example, mathematical utility classes, a database connection po, and in other words, it replaces the use of global non-object variables. Singleton is used when, there must be a unique instances of a class and it must be accessible to client and as well known access point. When the rule instance should be interchangeable and subclassing, and the client should be able to use an extended instance without modifying the. Ayan, makikita nyo po dito. Makikita po yung unique po na instance ni Singleton. Meron dito mga instances na nakuha din po niya. Yan po yung structure of Singleton pattern. Then, yun nga po, in-involve din po sa classes nito, Singleton defined as operation instance that lets client access its unique instance. Instance is a class level static operation. Singleton may be also responsible for creating its unique instances. So, siyempre, meron po tayong mga instances na nako-collect din nga po ni Singleton. Pero si Singleton din po, siya rin po yung responsable sa paggagawa po yung pattern po na to. Siya po yung gumagawa ng mga unique po na instances na nagagawa po ng pattern. Yung benefits nga po nito, ng pattern na ito, syempre, provide po ng control access to Singleton instance, which can be only accessed via instance method. So, kapag hindi po instance method, di po natin siya masyado na a-access agad. Reduce the name of the space of programmer. Yun po, di ba, kapag na-reduce nga po yung space po para po sa program, mas lumibilis po yung program natin. Permit of subclassing of Singleton. It can be adapted easily in diptychs number n. It's greater than 1 of instance. So, mas naano po natin, mas more friendly po kasi talaga si Singleton pattern than other po. Next po, the strategy pattern po, classmate, ayun na, the strategy pattern. This flavor pattern which defines the common interface for alternative version of algorithms, enabling a client to easily select this different version by varying objects operation involved. Una doon, syempre, the element of this pattern. Syempre, kailangan po natin alam yung mga elements nun. Client itself. Client is a class and operation of abstract of interface. Siyempre, kung ano po yung gagamitin natin ng data, kung sino po yung ipofocus natin na gagawan po ng program na yun. Abstract strategy, class, or interface provide different implementation of the operation. Siyempre, kung sino naman po yung mga data na ilalagay natin doon para po kay client, para po masatisfy natin kung ano po yung gusto niya nga pong makuwang ma-achieve po kung doon po sa program natin. And syempre, yung concrete strategy, a class of implement particular version of the operation. Syempre, doon po natin i-specify po natin kung ano po talaga yung kailangan natin na gawin po natin para po doon sa operation na gagawin po natin doon. The benefits of the pattern are the simplifies the codes of the system by replacing alternative versions of an algorithm into different classes, and that will be dynamic selection of this version by the client. Ayun nga po, makikita nyo po dito yung strategy natin, classmate. Sir, yung galing po kay client, nagbigay po siya ng abstract strategy. Siyempre, meron po tayong mga concrete strategy, 1, 2, 3, tapos pinagsama-sama po natin para po mabuo natin yung abstract strategy natin. System and subsystem design. This pattern can be used to the Scrabble system to structure to alternative computer move strategies. An operation can be defined to use one of the several alternative strategies. Una, find the highest adoring words that across new premium square and rich covered region to the board using the letter of track. Siyempre, itatapat natin to din sa mga triple words, double words. Yun po yung una natin ginagawa kapag nagkakaroon po tayo ng Scrabble system. Find the highest scoring, which is formally adding letters from the rack along the existing word. Siyempre, makikita nyo doon, di ba, meron po yung mga pantay-pantay din po ng mga words na pwede po tayo makabuo ng simple words or mga maliliit po na words, na 3-letter words, 2-letter words, ganun po. Look for an extensions to existing words that suffix 5 or prefix an, etc. For example, if available in the rack. Ito, simple lang dito. Pag may letter S tayo sa, ano natin, sa deck natin o yung lagayan natin ng mga Scrabble letters, yun po, ginagamit po natin yun para pandagdag po. Each separate strategy should be defined as a task. So, makikita po natin dito yung architecture of Scrabble. Ayun nga po. Makikita nyo po dyan yung architectural Scrabble. Ayan, parang sa data system din po natin na ginagawa. Sa operation po, ayun po, ganyan po siya. Parang din po siya nung una, diba? Find the highest scoring, siyempre, look for ano, so please, it's not a Scrabble. Ganun lang din naman po siya. Makikita nyo po dyan yung mga ano natin, start move. Yan po yung pinaano, words project produced by Scrabble po, yung pwede po natin magawa. Ito po yung pinakamalapit na pwede yung gawin. Makakabuo ko yung mga 3 letters, 2 letters, 10. Associate po with one another, then they can put to a same group as a subordinate of A. So, yun po, example, yung A nga po, subordinate na po to B. Logically coherence nga po, yung more constraint related classes, siyempre, yung mga ano po, meron pong medyo malayo na po talaga sila, different groups na po sila. Siyempre, more on, yun nga po, yun po sila mapupunta sa logically coherence po. User-defined interface design. User interface design. The platform-independent GUI design can be carried out by specifying appearance, layout, and behavior of an interface in terms of generic UI concepts such as screen, button, text file, label, table, etc. Which we have similar interpretation in UI technologies such as XIITMI and Java Swing. For example, we can draw diagram of the intended layout of the Scrabble key interface using such as platformer-dependent functionalities. The mapping of the GUI concepts into XHTML and Java is given. In the table, SIXNI can be used to represent the structure of GUI, with each kind of GUI component represented by a particular tag, and the nesting structure of GUI expressed by the nesting hierarchy of XML tag. An example, this is in the XUI toolkit 35, which defines a platform-independent GUI description language using XML. Defining generic GUI elements in the XML tag. So the Scrabble modules from class diagram. Ayan po, may kita nyo dito. ayun, yun nga classmate, siguro mas marami po kayong alam dyan, kung meron po kayong idea, pwede nyo pong share. This is the Scrabble GUI. Ayun nga po, siyempre meron po tayong mga player score. Ayun po, nakikita po natin yung board button, yung start move, cancel move, yun po. Pwede naman po lahat. Simple Scrabble game lang din po yung parang kalalabasan po ng Scrabble system natin. Data respiratory design. These forms of design identifies what data needs to stored persistently and what structure and organization of the data will be used. Various technology can be used in the actual implementation of the data respiratory. The resulting class diagram can be directly translated into the database table. Number 1. Each transform persistent class key is represented as the table with a column of each attribute and with primary keys in the identifying attribute, or producing a compound key of a group of attributes stereotyped as identified. Number 2. Each persistent explicit many-one association from A to B is represented as a foreign key from the table for A to the table for B. Number 3. Each persistent implicate association will be represented by an SQL predicate which is used to be calculated in the entitled instance of association by the select query. So, yun nga classmate. Yun yung resulting class diagram that we can directly translate in the data. Yung SQL natin is structured query language. The standard notation of describing operations and operation on relational data is SQL, which is in a small set of declaration of OCL. Like a statement, express, query, update, entitles, store, and table processing and express via foreign keys. The most frequently used SQL statements are select column from table where conditions, insert into table, column, values, ganon, delete from table where condition, ganon, update table, set, column, values, column, where condition. Yun yung mga yung mga ginagawa natin ng mga formula po para po magamit po natin sa SQL. Action nga, siyempre sa select statement, siyempre, siya rin yung ginagamit natin through search, through the tables and produce result. Tables, column, and name columns of the tables, which will be rows made up of the columns values from the rows of the table that satisfy the condition in the condition. Columns, attribute occurring in two or more tables must be qualified by the name of the table entire. Exception handling. Ayun nga classmate, in the exception handling, ito yung programming language and environments differs widely in how they deal with the situation of erroneous execution, such as attempt to divide by zero. So, the difficulty of the provided platform independent specification of the functionality, such as cases, the role condition of an operation is expressed what conditions are necessary and commencement of an execution of the operation. For each an execute without error, the post condition only express the effort, the effect of an execution of the operation in case there will be three conditions was true at its start. So neither constraint describe the behavior of the operation in use cases. So yun nga, classmate, dito sa topic natin ng exception handling, describe nga dito yung error cases natin. Can be added to the module definition as exemption classes clauses, for example. Siyempre, maglalagay tayo dito ng mga operation po na itatype natin, tapos magkakaroon po tayo dito ng mga ng exemption para doon po sa ruling, para doon sa isang condition. Okay? In general, an exemption should be deal with the closest point to where it be arise, at which appropriate action can be taken or a meaningful error. Message can be provided to the user system. In the above example, yun nga, yung example nga na sinabi ko sa inyo, the unvalidated move operation can be itself generate message, no dictionary can be found, parang mga ganon, yung pwede nyo sabihin yun, na pwedeng insufficient memory, nothing found, parang ganon ba? Yun yung pumapasok sa exemption handling. Data types of PIM may be used unbounded integers, for example, and in the infinite precision real numbers, which are not available in executable programming language. Either the developer must be ensured that the bounds on data are enforced so that the PIM and PSM between the same citable extended data types must be used. For instance, beginner in Java allows integers values much larger than the standard types. The evaluation of Boolean expressions in OCL is also slightly different to that in the programming language. A and B is false if either A or B is false. Even the other arguments undefined A and or B is true and A or B is true. Even if the other argument is undefined, its contrast in Java X evaluation is left to right so that if A is undefined and other case, example, evaluation result, in an infinite loop, the whole expression of undefined by using the precondition to ensure expressions and operation definition are always defined can be removed as such discrepancies. Method systematic, particularly in the rule concerning and overriding, usually be significant between language. Language-specific rules and features such as the lack of the multiple inheritance in Java, and in contrast nga po in C++, or both in get in let method forms but Visual Basic and C prime in contrast to Java. C++ permitted overloading of the operations such as the mechanics is not in Java. And the definition type of the template class only supported Java for version 1.5. Ayun nga, so medyo meron din po silang contrast talaga nito kay C++, which is yun nga lang din po yung yung reporter. Medyo aware lang din po sa mga ganun. Kita po ninyo, sinabi ko na rin po naman